Let's take a look at some of the new features in ASP.NET. And as we go through these, and the first thing you see come up here is compiled. And that should tell you a lot about where ASP.NET has grown to. You're now running compiled code. No longer are you running a scripted, interpreted language. And this really hits home exactly what happened a couple of years ago when Steve Ballmer first introduced the .NET initiative. It wasn't received very well. A lot of people called it not yet and on because the technology had been announced, but it didn't actually exist for the public to look at and play with yet. And when this thing came out, it really surprised a lot of people. And this is one of the big reasons. You're now running compiled code because the code that you write, even for your web pages, now becomes MSIL, or the intermediate language code, and then gets compiled when it's run. And then on future subsequent requests for that compiled code is retrieved and run. So this is much, much faster and more efficient. Caching has been added in ASP.NET. You can now cache entire web pages or portions of web pages to a location in memory so that when that page or that portion of a page is requested again, that it comes from memory and the server actually doesn't have to do nearly as much processing to cause that page to be returned to the requester. And that is very, very efficient. Namespaces and classes are new features here. They come as part of the package of being part of the .NET framework. Now, classes, we were introduced to classes a few years ago as a means of separating our procedures and functions out into usable groups or descriptive groups. And now namespaces takes that another step. It separates our classes into usable groups. Now, this really helps because there are over 8,000 classes in the .NET framework, so you need a little help in organizing those. And we'll take a look at some of those a little bit later in the course. Server controls are the big deal in ASP.NET. These things provide a lot of programming power for you built into the control itself, so that once you drop a control onto a web page, there's a lot more functionality there. These things blow the old HTML controls away. And there's generally a server control that mimics or that takes the place of each old standard HTML control plus some. So you're going to like server controls when we get there. Web services, you could do a whole course on web services. These things have taken the world by storm. Many of the web pages that you go to on the internet now are using web services. Now, these things have been around a while. They've been around a few years, and they use SOAP, Simple Object Access Protocol language, and HTTP and a few other things. And they've been somewhat complex to learn and build, and you will be shocked at how easy these things are to build and to use in .NET. And this has been one of the things. Web services has probably been the number one thing to really capture people's attentions about .NET, especially the non-Microsoft folks. When they see web services in .NET, they really are impressed. Microsoft has improved security. Now, it's no surprise to you, I'm sure, that Microsoft's had some security issues in the past. This comes from their model, from the way they've built their software and provide it. It's built to be easy to use, easy to set up. And one of the byproducts of that is it tends to be installed with all the doors open. And there's a change at Microsoft, and you're going to see less and less of that. But part of the security features they've given you here in ASP.NET is the ability to use Windows authentication in kind of a trusted arrangement with Windows 2000. Of course, Windows 2000 uses Kerberos version 5 authentication, and that's some pretty powerful stuff, and you can use that to authenticate users onto your web pages. Passport, some people love this, some hate it. This allows you to let your users set up a username and a password through Microsoft's Passport service, and then when they hit your website, they use their Passport name and password, and we'll talk more about that later. Forms authentication, this is what you know as a login screen. You can present a login to your users and take their information based on what they put in, either authenticate them onto your web page or not. And then there's better account impersonation here, and we'll talk about that a little later. Scalability has been improved drastically in ASP.NET. One of the best things that's happened is the way that we can deal with session state. Now, the web is a stateless medium. Your web server does not know between trips whether you're the same person who was there just a few seconds ago or whether you haven't been on the site in months. And so we have to take care of that. Now, it's possible in ASP.NET now, and very easy, to store all the state storage on a separate machine, which means users don't have to be referred back to the machine that originally filled their previous request. And so we can scale our web servers into web farms much easier and more efficiently. We can also store these in a database. Now, if you're choosing to use Microsoft SQL Server database for this purpose, Microsoft's made it especially easy for you to set this up and store your session state in a database. And again, that just helps scalability. Cookieless sessions, the onslaught of the press against cookies have created quite a fury over these things. And as a result, many people turn these off in their browser. ASP.NET uses a configuration that allows you to maintain state without cookies, even if the cookies are turned off in the browser, and we'll look at some examples of that a little bit later on. This is some pretty cool technology. This is easily configured. Configuration has been changed into the use of some English readable XML files, and these things may look a little funky the first time you see them, but I promise you, you're really going to like these things. They make it super easy to see what configurations have been turned on, what users are authorized, and so forth in your web pages, and we'll talk about those a little bit later in the video. Easy deployment. This has gotten the most of the attention from a lot of people on ASP.NET. Once you've built your web application, you're ready to deploy it, you simply copy it to the web server. There's no registering DLLs, none of that stuff. There's just simply copy, and in some cases you can use Xcopy. Just stick the files on the web server. You don't have to stop and restart it or anything. They're just there. They're ready to go. This is the 20,000-foot view of new features in ASP.NET. And I just wanted to bring these to your attention. We're going to hit on these as we go through the course. But just to kind of get you oriented and see what you've got, you're not looking at ASP.4.0. This is totally brand new. This is ASP built on the .NET framework. So let's take a look at some of these and get started in the next video.